Hey, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on finally. For the people that don't know who you are, what do you do and who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Mark Testa. We have a New York-based experiential agency. For 20 years, we work with companies and marketers to create consumer experiences and environments that help them stand out at festivals and multicultural, multi-sponsored events, as well as multicultural events. From strategy to design to production, we integrate live experiences with digital to advance brands' objectives. Basically, we help brands stand out at big events.
Very cool. I like it. And how did you get into this? Was this by accident?
Yeah, I guess so. When I started my career, I wanted to be a set designer. I wanted to be in theater. I moved to New York City. I had it all set. Needed to eat. Started to do window displays and stuff because I'm like, well, that's kind of like theater. I need to get some money, and we did window displays over at Macy's, which turned into like product launches and stuff. I thought it was pretty cool. Then went back to school. Tried to go back to school for an NYU for set design, and didn't have any money. So I had to go back to Macy's, and then I started to do some work at like Fashion Week here in New York, working with some of the sponsors and fashion people. And slowly it kind of evolved into this. It didn't even have a name at the time. It was just like helping people and sponsors. These sponsors would buy sponsorships, but they didn't know what to do with it. So we'd kind of help them figure out their environments, help them, with their goals and what they're doing, and then eventually started to work for a magazine, a publication, doing their events, getting to travel around the world. Kind of loved it. Never wanted to go back to theater, and eventually, after about 8 years of that, started to do more design work for freelance, and then slowly, like I guess like everybody else, accidentally, I was like, I felt I was supporting out other people, agencies. Where I was designing for other agencies, I was kind of helping the portfolio of other competitors. And I was like, well, I guess I got to call myself an agency if I want. And I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know what it was at the time, and slowly just kind of built from there.
I think when everyone starts an agency, we have no clue what an agency is. We just know we're like, you know how to do this particular service, and then someone offered us money, and then someone's like, you're an agency. I'm like, agency? And like that's how I think about it.
Oh, so for sure. I always thought an agency back in the day was like the big Ogilvy and the Saatchi. I'm like, well, I'm not that. I'm not Mad Men. I don't even know what I'm just, like I said, experiential didn't even have a name years ago. We were just doing the work. Companies were calling us and like, I need you. Hey, I got this thing I need built. Can you do it? I was just like, well, but then I had other people saying, well, I do it all. I'm like, well, how is that possible? You say you do it all. What are you doing? And then it was like, well, I guess I got to kind of join in here and call myself an agency.
Yeah, exactly. Well, today, I was talking to our mastermind, and one of the things that came up, which was kind of funny that we had this podcast scheduled today, was doing events.
Oh, really? Okay.
And there was Brian, who was in your mastermind with you. He had a smaller event, where he invites people in, and we were talking about, like, he was like, hey, I'm always having people come to the events and they love the events and they want to come to the next one, but he never had like a call to action in it. And we were like, Brian, what are you doing? Like, just say, this is sponsored by agency name. And if we can help you out, let us know how we can help. And it was a game changer for him. And then, Duncan chimed in. He was like, yeah, because he's in a cool office. His office is an old church.
Oh, cool.
And so he used to do events. He was like, yeah, I need to get back into them. So that's kind of your gig. And I love events. Like, we do 2 a year. And I know a lot of people listening are wanting to do other events in order, or figure out ways to build their pipeline, get people aware of them. What are some things that you've seen that, people are doing wrong when they do an event?
There's a lot they do wrong. No, and I don't mean to be smart about it, because I actually have a lot of people come to us who think they do events, big companies, and they don't know what their objective is. I think that's one of the big things. One of the questions we always ask clients, and at any level, what does success look like to you? Why are you even doing this? And I think you have to be very clear on why. Hey, is it to build new business? If it's people in the mastermind, it could be to build new business, brand awareness. Some of the big companies, the data collection. I mean, that could be huge for somebody, and that's all they need. It's like, I just want bodies through the door. Social media, that's another big one that we deal with, is social media. Just how much social media can they garner from this event? How can they stand out? People have to understand there's a lot that goes into it. I've always thought I should do my own event. We do for other people, but I just don't have the energy to do my own. I'm trying to also, small, like if it's a gallery opening, I'm trying to do it this time next year, sponsored by the company, and I see the legs to it, but you really got to almost treat it like a job. It can't. When we even do smaller things for ourselves, or even smaller companies, you have to do the scheduling. You have to say, hey, this is what I'm trying to get out of this. Dedicate the time, because it's going to suck your time no matter what. We always have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, because in many ways you're doing prototypes. This could be the first time you're doing it. How can we, who are you trying to get through the door? Who's your audience? I mean, there's so many questions to ask. I just think people need to be truly honest with what they're trying to get out of it. Maybe it's just a 10-person event. That's great. Maybe for your, like yourself, if you're doing a 40-person event, that's great. Start where you can. But I think some people go in, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to build Comic-Con. I'm like, it's not going to happen. Be realistic, guys.
Yeah, I think everything big starts off small.
Yeah.
I think if you try to go for something really big, I think that puts too much stress. I remember when we were chatting with you about, doing like a 200-person event. I was just like,
right.
Mark, like, and Stacy could see my stress. I'd be like,
I saw too. Yeah.
I was like, man, I just want like max 40. Like,
Yeah.
I just like the smaller, intimate event. And I think a lot of agencies are like that as well, where, what if you could get 20 of your perfect prospects in a room?
Exactly.
Right. Like, and then the goal is for them to, have a conversation with you. Or like what I was telling Brian, we were like, well, you have no call to action. You just said, thanks for coming, sign up for the next one. Like,
right.
And there's nothing there. But like, if you had something to say, hey, if you like this, and there you see some challenges in some of the things that you're doing around this, let's have a conversation. Let's chat.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, look at, budget's always a big thing that we deal with too. I try to get that out of clients first, because it really does set the tone as to how big you can. It's the kind of the level, or you can say, I know where you want to be, but if you don't have the budget, don't kill yourself trying to invite 200. 40 is the better. I'd rather have 40 great people in that room who can tell, or if it's, let's say it's social media or whatever it is, who can tell other people how great it was. And then next year you can grow a little bigger.
Yep. Yeah. And what I didn't realize too was when you put on an event, how much it actually costs.
A lot.
Like, and just a funny story, you'll get a kick out of this. So out of the Elevate event that we did, 40 people, had it at a nice hotel, really cool. Usually we don't like to do it at a hotel. We like to rent out like a big ranch, that kind of stuff, but it was a little different. And I went to Stacy. I was like, oh man, they had these like big Hershey bars, right?
Right.
And so I grabbed one. I eat about half of them. I'm like, man, I'm kind of full. I was like, I just threw it in the garbage. I went to Stacy. I was like, do you want it? She's like, no. Threw it in the garbage. She looked at me. She's like, you're throwing away like $10. I'm like, what?
Exactly. Right. Those hotel pricing. Exactly.
I was like, they're charging me $10 for a candy bar. Oh, I was so mad.
No, for sure. I and I think we talked about this, that whole foot in the door thing where, I call it that thing. But our biggest foot in the door many times is budgets, because when people come to us like, well, I have an event, like here's an example. Somebody came to me, they want to do something at Art Basel in Miami in December, and they have an idea of what it costs. And we literally had to do a budget. It's like, do you know all the costs involved? And they didn't realize. So we have budgets that are designed for events, where it's everything I can possibly think of, tons of categories where I can't even remember everything. And there are hidden costs, particularly if you're at hotels or like say a convention center. But, I had to break it down for them and say, hey guys, you're going to be in Miami at the busiest time of the year. Do you understand your average hotel cost is going to go up, potentially 50%, and they were surprised by things like that. Or it's like, or if you don't, let's book this now, because if you don't, I know you want to do it because it's sexy, but we're already in the middle of the year and you may be blocked out already. So we've seen all these various, scenarios, and we try to flag people early on. That's like, hey, these are, and when we hit them with budgets, I don't mean to scare people, but I need people to understand this is where I think you should be. And, the eyes usually get big and like, let me get back to you. And I'm like, I understand. I'd rather tell you now. I don't like nickel and diming people later. It's like, oh, that's another 50,000, another 50,000 or 5,000 or whatever. I'd rather just, let's get it out. Here are all the scenarios that could possibly happen to you. So at least you go in knowing, eyes wide open, this is what it could be.
Well, and when you do that for your agency, and this regardless what type of agency, when you over communicate, that prospect is going to trust you. A lot of times I would have prospects come to me and they'd be shocked on a budget.
Yep.
Right. They would tell me a number, like I'd finally get it out of them.
Right.
I'd be like, man, you're not even close. And let me tell you exactly why. And here's what you need to look out for if you're going to continue with this budget. And then they were like so blown away. So then they compared everybody else to us, and then they would come back to us and be like, yeah. Right. And it was the same thing when I was building this house in Colorado. I had so many builders, like I had a budget and I had so many builders say, yeah, I could do that. I had one builder and he said, no, you need to double it. And I actually went with them.
Right.
Because they were honest, and probably all the other ones would have been over the one I just picked and be like, sorry.
Yeah, no, we almost treat ourselves like contractors sometimes, because we do the same thing. We're building this house, sometimes physically building structures like houses, and we want to be very honest with people. This is what it could be, and they'll say it. Well, let me get another bid. I'm like, go ahead. I'm all for it. Go ahead. Go get your other bid. I may not be here when you come back, because we have other things going on. But it's like, if that means you really don't understand what you're getting yourself into. I mean, I can understand somebody smaller just trying things out, but some of these big companies where they start bidding us against each other, I was like, you're just going to push me to a limit that I possibly can't get to, and you're not going to be satisfied in the end. If I say, you want me to say yes to this budget, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be satisfied, I'm not going to be satisfied. So, and the relationship will be over. I'd rather you come back to me later, realistically, and we can do something together, and you trust me, rather than saying, oh, I'll hit your number, or this guy hit that number. It's a big deal for us.
Looking back, I mean, you've been in the agency space for a while. Looking back, what's the biggest surprise that's happened to you?
So many. I mean, it depends what you're saying. I mean, I think COVID was a big thing for us. That as an experiential agency, that was devastating. That just shut in 1 week. We had 5 projects just get destroyed. Didn't think it was going to come back. I'm actually surprised now that it is back at a vengeance. It is very much back. So
how did you make it through COVID? Because obviously that whole industry just shut down. No one was doing events for a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I had, outside of the PPP and the government money, which became my full-time job to figure that one out, I actually had a couple projects at tech firms that we had already received deposits for. And we had some really good contracts. So half of them let me keep the 50%. And a lot of things with events is, well, one, we had an argument with one it was a tech conference. They were like, well, the event didn't happen, therefore we want all our money back. I was like, but do you understand, we worked 6 months on this project prior to being shut down. Our work was ahead of, from designs to renders to floor plans. I'm not giving you that money back. We went back, we came to an agreement later on, but most of the companies actually let us keep some of the money, which was in many ways probably more lucrative than if we actually did the job. I had I have a gentleman, a designer who works for us. He's on a work visa. So I laid everybody off, but I couldn't lay him off, or else he would have had to go back to the UK. But he loved digital. This is where, you guys come, we talked a little bit digital before. And I was like, well, let's see. He wanted to get right into like the metaverse and like, go for it. I have nothing. I have no skin in the game. I really don't understand it, but he was really into it, creating these events online, through the Oculus and everything. And nobody else was really doing it at that level. And we just kind of like, well, what if a live event was put digital where you can walk around and everything? And we pitched that to our existing clients who couldn't do anything either. They couldn't do these events because they had sponsorship, like a media company, they had sponsorships that they were so used to for some of their big events. But it's like, well, what if I gave you this digital one where you can walk around the world, click on things, and it sends it to their digital their website, and people can buy things. And that really kept us going. We did about 4 or 5 of those during COVID, and they were great. I'll be honest with you, our margins were actually better. I didn't have to travel anywhere. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, I did stuff, but we didn't have to like go anywhere or spend 10 days in a convention center, hotels, and, be on my feet all day. We just kind of did our thing, and it's kind of cool. I was hoping we can do more of that. I'm trying to get more back into that. But as events came back, people have kind of pushed. It was at the moment, and they pushed back a little bit. But, we're still leaning into some of the AR stuff. Like everybody wants a photo booth. I'm like, okay, that's great. What if we added a little AR component, where things float around, or it's a little more social media. So we actually just pitched that today. So we're trying to do more of that. And it's definitely helped us. And like I said, the margins are way better.
Oh yeah. Well, I think if you can kind of do a hybrid, or, because people do want to meet with people, right?
Yeah,
that's the thing that's never going to change, especially when, everyone gets scared of AI and it's going to replace my job. I'm like, no, it's not going to replace your job.
No.
Like people are trying to think about what are the things that are going to constantly keep changing. And I always tell people, and I constantly ask this in the mastermind, is what are the things in the next couple of years that will not change?
Right.
And you should be thinking about it that way. And when you think about it that way and you're like, people are always going to want to get advice from people. Like I cannot stand to call, like, I'm going to call out Verizon, because Verizon, I can't stand you right now. Right. Like, and screw you. But like you call Verizon, and what do you have to do? It's like, please tell me your phone number. And and you're going through all this automation that doesn't work. And and literally my wife will be like, oh my God, Jason's going to kill this computer, because I start yelling at it. I'm like, screw you.
Right. And it's Verizon. You would think that's what they do, that it should work, right?
Exactly.
Not intended. They don't want it to work.
They don't want to talk to anybody. And it's very apparent. And that's why I want to switch. And a lot of agencies are trying to automate or use AI and do all this. I'm like, look, people still want to talk to someone and just
absolutely
listen to. So, it's just, that's the thing that's never going to change.
Never. And I see it every day, when we see the, like I said, we just came back from this big this big festival, and the crowds just keep increasing and increasing. I'm like, you guys are still coming. I'm like, we kept expanding the footprint. I'm like, they still want to touch. They want to interact. They want to, be with their friends. They want to hang out. They want to, get that selfie moment against a really cool background, and post that they were there doing something cool and telling everybody about it. That's not going to change. But for us, like you said, the digital part, we have to start engaging it more, so I got a selfie moment, I got a photo op, I got to do that, or, we're using AI a lot here, to help our workflow in a good way. Like we use Midjourney. I had one of our designers loves Midjourney. I didn't discover she even knew how to use AI at that level, but she was playing from her, like a hobby. I discovered that she was doing it on her LinkedIn post. I'm like, what is this? These are beautiful images. She's like, oh yeah, I'm just playing around. I was like, I have a client, rather than going through Pinterest, why don't we just input all that stuff and see what happens? And she comes up with these ideas that don't exist in the real world. Some are just so over the top that we can't make them. But I'm like, if I can at least present them, and I'm not saying they're AI right now, I'm just saying these are images that we, to get people's brain working. We presented, like I said today, we presented 4 of them completely over the top. I spoke with a client. I said, hey, these are just some ideas we're playing with. I know they're crazy. We haven't talked about budget, but you can see their eyes start to open. I'm like, oh, they're at least, they think that we're, I'm probably saying too much, but they think that we're going above and beyond. That if I had done this myself or our teams were on it, it would have taken us days and hours. So like, she's knocking this stuff out because she's so good at it, in an hour. So I've got 10 renderings that I could just never do. And I've literally got, I think we've got a couple of projects just from AI with half the amount of energy. And then we just build it and we like, okay. And I'm not scared for it too, because like, it's not going to replace me, because at the end of the day, that machine can't make that physical element at a convention center floor. I can say AI, build me a set design that looks beautiful, but it's not building me and engineering it. So our skills come in. Well, how do we take what this imaginary thing, bring it down to reality and actually make it physical? That's where our skills come in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of fun. We were chatting, in the community today of, we were talking about scaling, and we basically were chatting around who's using AI for what and how, and how are we getting more efficient, and how are we doing this? And, it's pretty amazing. Like we were even talking about, AI and dashboards. Like imagine if you have AI, rather than having a dashboard, you connect AI to all your different tools and software that you use. And then you can ask it questions based on that. And then it prints out whatever it tells you what you need to do based on like, hey, in all these banner ads that you did, don't use red because it means danger. And the conversion for the blue and the green is way better. Right? Like, just imagine that. Like that's almost here.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. I mean, we had a whole discussion about things we don't know. And if I had AI to tell me don't do this just based on knowledge of history of things that have worked and didn't, like in my head, I know things have worked and didn't work. And I was like, stay away from that, or option A, option B, option C. In the real world, if an AI was able to help with that, it would be powerful. The only thing is our clients would do the same. So it kind of levels the playing field a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, Mark, this has been a lot of fun chatting with you. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
I know we talked about, I think for somebody who wants to do an event, I think the other thing to keep in mind is time. I mean, my biggest thing outside of budgets and scale and all that, it's time. People don't understand the power of time. We should pretty much shut all our projects down if we don't take anything under 6 weeks. We just can't execute it. Or we can, but it's going to show. Like what is the saying? You can get something fast, cheap, or good. Pick two. That applies something like this. I think people have to be realistic. It's like if I'm doing something, 6 months, I'm doing an event, no matter what the size it is, the farther out you can do it, the better. Give yourself a little breathing room. You actually have more control over the budgets. You can think about it. You can dedicate the time. You can dedicate the resources. But when you compress time, I tell clients, no matter, you can't throw more money at me. It's like, well, we give me more money. I was like, you can't buy time. I can't buy it. So, I mean, that's my one of our biggest things is time. And we struggle with this almost every day with every client on everything we do.
Yeah. I mean, we do 2 events a year, one for our members and one for non-members. And, with agency experience, we start planning a year out. We put that much effort into that to make it, the best. And it's only for 25 agencies. Like that's it. And we put a year into it.
Yeah.
But it's that's what that important.
Yeah. I mean, just booking the rooms, getting the place locked in. You better, do that all ahead of time, because you don't want to you'll end up paying more down the road and stressing everybody out. It's just if you know what you want to do, a year out is not the end of the world. Just a year goes by fast.
Yeah, it does. Well, this has been fantastic, Mark. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And for all of you listening, if you want to come to one of our events that we're doing, if you go to agencymastery360.com, if I can speak right, I'm just getting over COVID, and click on events, you can see all the events that we have coming up, from our agency experience out in Colorado to our Elevate experience coming in Phoenix in the winter, and then agency experience again in Aspen, Colorado the following year. So you guys want to go there, go check that out. And until next time, have a swank day. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you want more content like this, make sure you click on the link on the screen or check out your most popular podcast platform where the full episode is there. And until next time, have a swank day. What are you doing? Go check it out. Click on the link. I'll see you soon.